Yes, of course.
Das ist gut.
Dann
Da habe ich nicht so ganz.
hast du Meetup gecheckt. Und dann haben wir dort, du bist komplett ausgerüstet. Und dann gehst du dort drauf und dann hast du dort deine Dinge, aber das weißt du selber auch, oder?
Tut er das Steuer oder mache ich das?
Das musst du machen. Du musst sagen, wenn du einen PowerPoint hast, dann kommt es hier drauf, du musst es sharen. Share Screen, gehst du dort drauf, dann
Aber
machst
ich
du
glaube,
Share.
der shared das selber.
Nein, oder ich weiß nicht, wenn dir jemand, wie sagt man das?
Ja, wie ein PowerPoint schickt, ich weiß auch nicht.
Aber wenn jemand anders auf der anderen Seite etwas macht, dann musst du eigentlich nichts machen, aber jetzt dann automatisch aufspielen.
Ja, er tut es automatisch aufspielen.
Genau, aber wenn du etwas machst auf dem PowerPoint, wenn die anderen es schauen wollen, musst du das PowerPoint sharen.
Verstehe. Ja. Und der Ton und so?
Der Donuts?
Der Ton?
Der Ton haben wir
Der
jetzt.
Ton.
Test. Kann ich eben schnell bei dir reingehen, oder nicht?
Ja.
Kannst du schnell bei dir reingehen? Even ganz kurz. Nein, ist schon gut. Komm even dir rein. Als man nicht alles auf dem Handy hat. Treffen, ins Treffen. Einladung senden? Nein, natürlich nicht.
Ah, du meinst, na, wenn ich Meeting, dass ich
Ja, mit dem mit rein.
Ja, da wäre super.
Weißt du, ob bei dir reingehen? Ich komme nicht rein.
Aber ich kann ja kann ich den nicht inviten. Wie schreibt man Gary? So.
Nein, Gerhard. Mach mal Rinja. Einfach R-I-N-A. Selbstverständlich. Die ganze 4 der 5 Buchstaben längst vorkommen. Dankeschön.
Super.
Einverstanden?
Disconnecting, can't hear you yet.
Hallo? Hallo, Test. Ja, ich bin dort aus, ja, aber das ja nicht stimmt. Ich würde sagen, über den Spiegel haben. Das geht nicht. Das funktioniert nicht. Hallo? Hallo, Test. Hallo? Ja, es kommt nicht dort rein. Hallo? Okay, warte. Hallo? 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 Test. Ja, das ist eigentlich länger, oder? Kleiner nicht so.
Dann müssen wir da etwas machen.
Oh, ich bin nicht.
Weißt du, beim Audio vom Zoom selber.
Da. Warte, kann ich.
Kannst du mal da
Hallo? 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 So ist es. Grüezi. Hallo. Es ist alles okay. Das ja. Du musst auf dem gehen. Hallo. Ist gut. Ich verabschiede mich wieder.
Perfekt. Also viel habe ich auch.
Hey, was nicht alles mit der Nadel kann machen.
Ja. Und deine Nummer habe ich auch.
Ja, sehr schön. Wer hat meine Nummer nicht?
Ja, effektiv.
Julia, da muss ich einfach richtig sagen. Wer hat meine Nummer nicht? Also,
Ja,
Katja Stohler, kennst du, oder?
ja, ja.
Ja.
Nadja.
Nadja,
Ja, ja, ja.
kennst du, oder?
Ja.
Privat. Und
Sogar.
Privatnummern, wenn etwas ist, dann schickt sie mir per WhatsApp oder weißt du, guck mal. Ich habe nicht nur eine, ich habe viel mehr Leute, die da
Sogar.
per WhatsApp sagen dann, oh, ich habe morgen Dinges und das, kannst du dann vorbeikommen oder so.
Weißt du, aber da ist mir so dankbar um jemanden, der da ein bisschen schaut mit der Technik.
Oh, das macht mir Spaß.
Ja, und dann ist es doppelt schön.
Ja, das ist es so. Hey Julia, ich muss für allein kommen.
Ja, ja, sicher. Ja.
Okay,
Tschüss.
tschüss.
Merci vielmals.
Ja, bitte, bitte.
Hallo. Der mit
Long time no see.
Julia, how are you?
Good.
We have to catch up. We do, for a coffee or lunch.
Hi Basil, can you hear us?
Yes, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, do you have a video or is it just going to be audio from you?
I think it's a video. Are you sharing your screen?
Yeah, I will share my screen.
Yeah.
Let me let me get the slides open.
Okay, sounds great.
All right. Yeah. So is that you, Julia? Yeah.
Yes, that's me.
Do you know how many people from Basel will be joining?
Yes, so far there are 2 people.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Doesn't make a difference. Morning.
So we'll probably start in sort of 5 minutes or so.
Okay, sounds great.
Looks like there are people joining Zoom.
Oh yeah, there's a few. So,
Where's the camera?
yeah.
Here's the camera. If you just stand, so it's the side of the face.
So it'd be like, no,
No.
I can. Okay, do you want to?
Yeah. Hello, hello, hello.
Basil, can you hear Julia on that
Hello.
microphone? Please speak.
Hello, Basil, hello.
Yeah, sounds great. I can hear everything.
Okay, great. Okay, Basil, it's 4:10 here, so we might make a start. So thank you all for joining us today and welcome to our workshop on systematic reviews and meat analysis. My name is Edwin Tan. I'm a senior lecturer here at Sydney Uni at the School of Pharmacy. I'll preface this by saying I'm not an expert in systematic reviews and meat analysis, but I have done a lot of them. So maybe that makes me an expert. I'm not too sure. But I think what I can offer is that unique perspective as a pharmacist researcher on the types of sort of reviews that we can do in this area, in particular, where systematic review and meat analysis may fit in. So I'm not the only person running today's workshop. This is very much a team effort. So in the first sort of 2/3 of the workshop, where it's focused more on systematic reviews, this will be run by our library staff. So we have the honor of having both Yulia and Jessica from the Sydney Uni Library to offer their expertise around systematic reviews. So please make sure you ask them lots of questions. Also on our sort of team, we have Irene who's also had experience conducting reviews in pharmacy practice, as well as our PhD candidate, Ilse Voigt, who is currently working on a scoping review, but has successfully published a systematic review. So I'm hoping that we're able to offer not just, I guess, the technical knowledge on how to conduct systematic reviews and meta-analyses, but placing this in the context of pharmacy practice research as well. It's great to see the people who have turned up today. Thank you for joining us. So we have a few delegates here at the Sydney Hub and also from Basel as well. So it's great to see that. So what I might do is I'll pass over to Yulia to commence the systematic review portion of today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. Just checking if everyone can hear me properly. And my name is Yulia. and I'm one of the librarians who previously supported School of Pharmacy and have been helping with quite a few systematic and not so systematic reviews that were conducted here. And Jessica is currently part of Medicine and Health library support team. So we'll take you through the content. Jessica will be monitoring Zoom together with Ilsa. So if you have any questions, I'll talk you through the Zoom etiquette in a second. Why is it not working? Yeah, it's working now. So if you're on Zoom, if you're joining us on Zoom, please might your mutes. Mute your mic. I'm out of practice. I'm sorry. And follow the presented instructions, because there will be question and answer sessions when you can answer your questions. You can use the back channel, the chat, as I'm talking. If you have questions, please use chat, or either Jessica or Ilsa will be able to help you. And I would begin by acknowledging the country. And I'm joining you today from the land of Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on which lands and whose lands the University of Sydney stands. And I can see that quite a few people are joining us on Zoom. So I acknowledge, if you're in Australia, all the traditional custodians of the lands from which you're joining us today. And I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And this is the rough outline of what's going to happen today. And of course, the last bit is Edwin's is kind of falling off this program, sorry. This is the library bit, and Edwin will pick up with meta-analysis talk. So we'll start with definitions, and then we'll concentrate on two big things of what systematic reviews are all about. And primarily, the two things that I would like to take out of this session is two big things that systematic reviews are supposed to be about. First is minimizing bias, and second is ensuring replicability. So we'll talk about minimizing bias, how it's done by a systematic review methodology and protocol. We'll cover other types of reviews so you could understand how systematic reviews are similar and different to many of them. And in ensuring replicability, this is actually the library expertise area. This is where you need to produce a documented and comprehensive search. And this is the beginning of ensuring replicability in systematic reviews. There is a plan for an activity there. We'll see how we go. It's a guided activity because we were not sure if fully independent activity will be suitable at this point, but we'll ask you to evaluate a systematic review strategy using a press checklist, and we'll see how that goes before introducing additional resources. So that's the plan. And now just checking with the audience in the room. How many of you, well, we know Ilsa have done one and working on the scoping. So there's another hand in the audience, 2 hands in the audience. Good. So yeah, 3 hands in the audience, and I know a team people too. I would like to ask you basically to tell me, what do you think systematic review is? Yes.
I'd like to throw another question.
Okay. Okay.
I often struggle to sort of identify what the difference is between a systematic review and a scoping review.
Yep. The question from the audience is that there's a bit of a, it's not clear what is the difference between systematic and a scoping review. And we will talk about this during the presentation. So here in the audience, there are quite a few people who have done a systematic review. What about Basil? Can we get a bit of feedback from Basil? How many people have done in the audience a systematic review, working on one, attempted one?
Yeah, I'm working on one systematic review right now. It's not published yet, but I'm working on it.
Good. Have you, Is it your first one? Or do you have experience doing that?
No, it's my first one.
First one, yeah. And how is it going?
I thought it would be easier.
Yeah, as librarians, we see a lot of researchers who basically can relate to that statement. Yeah, they thought it would have been easier. Hopefully after today's talk, some things will fall into place and things will become a little bit clearer. So let's just start with the definition. And there are two definitions in front of you. Because we just like to complicate things in the library. But there are similarities and differences between these definitions. And one of them comes from Cochrane, which is the golden standard of systematic reviews around the world. And another one comes from JBI, John Briggs Institute, that modified methodology slightly to suit a different area of health sciences, which is nursing. So you can see that one definition is quite a it's a rich one. A systematic review attempts to identify, appraise, and synthesize all the empirical evidence that meets pre-specified eligibility criteria to answer a given research question. It's a very fully fledged, containing the entire method almost definition, and a bit sort of toned down one from JBI that calls systematic reviews research synthesis, that aims to provide a comprehensive, unbiased synthesis of many relevant studies in a single document. In a different format, we used to ask students to look and compare and contrast these two definitions. We probably wouldn't do it now, but you can clearly see there are similarities there, but there are also differences. And that reflects basically the reality of life. Because systematic reviews, since they started quite a few decades ago, have spread to many, many different disciplines. And adjustments were needed to basically adopt them to quite a range of health and even non-health disciplines. And you can see the JBI is kind of toning it down a little to allow not so medical, not so clinical disciplines to fit within the same process. What does it indicate? It indicates that this is a living process. There is a gold standard, which is Cochrane, which is the founding fathers and mothers of the process and of systematic reviews per se, but there's also life, the reality that kind of makes its own demands and requires adjustments. And I think this is one lens from which I would encourage you to see this presentation. As librarians, we are the custodians of the golden standard. As Jess pointed out before this presentation, self-appointed custodians of the golden standard, because we have the knowledge, but we don't have much authority to enforce the standard. But we can tell you what a systematic review should be. What we can't tell you is what is possible or what is acceptable. We can tell you what's acceptable in your area of specialization, but it will be up to you to decide what is possible, how far you can push the boundaries, and how strict you should be adhering to rules. But today I will be playing off this, golden standard and reality. What should be done, what can be done, what can't be done under any circumstances. So think about it that way, the golden standard and reality, and interplay between the two. So for example, if we're talking about the classic systematic review question, it all started from a very specific question, classical clinical effectiveness of intervention question. So to assess the effect of something compared with something else applied to a certain health problem in certain types of population, diseases, settings, and so on and so forth. You need specific evidence that you can assess, so you can see how effective they are in solving a health problem. So this is a very classic sort of Cochrane style systematic review. They still exist, there's a lot of them, but it's not all that there is. But the methodology was developed around this very, very, very clear question type. And every time you sort of step away from this question type, it becomes harder and harder to fit into this methodology. And that's where we see students and researchers coming to us with, you know, hair-raising questions and problems. What do I do? But you need to understand, this is how we'll start. This is the foundation sort of floor. And there's an example there of a systematic, yes, there's a question.
Okay, I just want to ask, if somebody's following systematic review of Cochrane kind of protocol, does it automatically make it, do we just register it, or is it them that would kind of approve of a systematic review per se?
The question is, if someone is following a Cochrane approach to systematic reviews, is it automatically approved by Cochrane, or is there a special process? I don't have an answer to this, but I think that to write a Cochrane review, you need to be invited. That's what I understand. Am I correct, Tim?
There are invited reviews, but you can also put a concept for a review, and then that gets reviewed, and then that can be approved and then
Yeah. So you can be invited, but you can also propose a topic for a review, and if it's accepted, you can write for Cochrane. As a person who hasn't done it, you know, personally, I can't really tell you what are the steps in terms of, you know, how are you invited, but it's usually a team effort. Cochrane reviews are a team effort, and they need to be periodically rerun and revised. So that's their process, that's their approach. But you can use the methodology without being invited or without writing for Cochrane. You can use the methodology and their handbook and the software that they now created to do the review without it being, you know, official Cochrane review. So I assume slides will be made available to participants.
So we have the slides recorded, and they're going to be made available on the private YouTube channel for a set period of time.
Okay.
Including the slides.
So I'm told that the slides and the recording will be available on the private YouTube channel for a period of time. So I would encourage you to have a look at and click on the links at your spare time. In some of the links, we will include the self-learning opportunities for you. For example, in this particular case, there is an example of a pharmacy specific systematic review that fits within this Cochrane methodology sort of standard. But there's also an article that talks through a variety of types of reviews within mental health that you can do, and questions, how to navigate those questions for different review types. So please have a look at it at your spare time. So that was the standard, right? And this is the reality. So if you do a very simple search in one of the biggest databases out there, Scopus, you can see that, and for the types of literature review people are publishing and the way they're calling them, you can see that it's a wild west of imagination, basically. And this is a fresh sort of refreshed search, and you can see so up to 2022 for what? So gosh, my math. 12? No? How many years? I can't. 15, 16, 16. God, horrible. For 16 years, there's already close to 500,000 of systematic reviews published in scholars. And this is sort of people calling their reviews systematic reviews. And then it just gets weirder, right? We have about 30,000 systematic literature reviews, systematic scoping reviews, scoping, narrative, critical, and then systematic narrative reviews. Or, no, that's not systematic scoping. The last one should be systematic critical. That's a typo on my part. So if you look at it with a little bit of understanding of methodology, it makes no sense at all. But this is what people are calling their reviews. So that's why today we will be talking about this as well, because without knowing the reality of how the methodology is applied and how many mistakes are made, it's quite daunting navigating this field for researchers, especially for the first time. And this is where it's actually helpful of thinking about reviews as a spectrum. And if you think about a very traditional narrative review, when you are collecting information and writing it up as in a narrative style, as a story, as a text, as a narration. I ran out of synonyms. Without any particular methodology or without any particular thinking of bias or anything. That's where at the end of the spectrum would be, in the narrative sort of corner of things, with a review being prone to bias, but also not replicable. Why is it important? Why is it important that reviews were deprived of bias and being replicable? Why it all of a sudden became a thing? Well, it all started from the rise of evidence-based medicine and evidence-based practice, when the amount of data, primary data accumulated, was so immense and so huge that it became impossible for every individual researcher to navigate it on their own. So a type of synthesis was required, but you couldn't produce this synthesis without a method to control for bias and make it replicable. So this is where the methodology for systematic reviews come from. We need to synthesize evidence, applying basic science principles, make it with minimal bias and make it replicable. So this is the origin, very basic origin of systematic reviews. Narrative reviews couldn't do that. They were not meant to fulfill that purpose. But as you go to the right, through the slides, you can see that each sort of type of review goes closer and closer to the ideal, where the bias is minimized and the method is replicable. And the systematic review sits in that further corner of the spectrum, or side of the spectrum, towards which we're moving. You probably will never reach the ideal when there's no bias and it's totally replicable, but at least we're moving towards that ideal, towards the systematic review. So that's it's the basic sort of understanding of why, but also the difference between different review types. We'll talk about different review types in a little bit of detail down the track as well. So if we're talking about minimizing bias first, we're talking about the method and we're talking about the protocol. So this is a Cochrane funnel. It comes from the handbook or website, handbook on website. And this is the visualization of the process as conceived by Cochrane, and also the steps of the method as conceived by Cochrane. And you can see that you would need to have clearly articulated objectives and questions, pre-specified selection criteria. You would need to conduct a comprehensive search to identify all relevant studies, and that's what Cochrane is very adamant about. You need to identify them all, both published and unpublished, and then select them according to specified criteria, appraise, extract, analyze, and then present it all, including protocol and methods. Well, to our liking in the library, protocol and methods should come a little bit earlier because they kind of like an addendum there at the end. Now they really, you're publishing your protocol earlier than that. And the funnel is actually a very, very good visual metaphor for the process, because you start with the amount of evidence you identified by running your comprehensive searching. So it's all up there in quite a big quantity and in a mixed state. And then you start sifting it through the process stage by stage, and each time it's less and less that comes out, because first you applying your selection criteria, doing title and abstract search, title and abstract screening, sorry, thank you. Title and abstract screening, then you doing the full text screening again, and then you ending up with appraising what you've screened, and then you're going down, and if lucky, you can do a meta-analysis on what's remaining of the good quality studies that you've identified by applying selection criteria. So each time you're going in spiral, the number is reducing and the quality presumably is increasing because you're identifying the best quality studies out of what you've selected at the very beginning. We will come back to the final metaphor later to explain the differences between different review types. So where does the protocol fit in all this? The protocol is very important, and we chose to kind of pay special attention and tribute to it in this presentation, because this is the bit that sometimes is missed, especially by new beginning researchers, and it comes as afterthought. I'm wondering now, is it because of that Cochrane step process that puts it at the number 8? Maybe we should contact them and have a bit of a chat. But no, protocol is very important at the very early stages of the process, because it contains a question and it contains your understanding of the method, but it also includes the search strategy. Because without a search strategy, nobody knows how you're going to approach the topic, right? But it also makes sure that the entire team, and make no mistake, systematic reviews is a team effort. So the entire team is on the same page. Everybody understands what the question is, what methods they're applying, the timelines, everything. But it also allows you, if there are external stakeholders involved in the process, to communicate to them, what is that you're doing? What are your timelines? What question you're working on? And it keeps you focused. So many times, and it might take a long time, so many times we saw quite a drift from original concept. Protocol doesn't allow you to do that. It keeps you focused and on topic. You must have a protocol, but it is highly recommended that you register it or publish it. So it's a must and highly recommended. It's a very lower demand. And why is it highly recommended for systematic reviews? Because it keeps your biases checked. You can see among the reasons there that first of all, it allows other researchers to know that you're working on this topic. Don't touch it, it's mine, right? It helps avoid publication bias when only studies that produce positive results are published, because you already said, yeah, I'm doing that. So even if you came down to 0 in your search process, you still have to publish it. It's also a result, not a very fancy one, but still a result. But it's also allowing readers assessing the quality of your review, because they can compare. This is what you said you'll do, and this is what you did. It's very clear. did you stick to the method or not? So it's all about minimizing bias. It's all about transparency. Yes?
Just going back to your comment about, registering highly recommended, it's not a must, but it's highly recommended. I've had, reviewers comment, I think even from the editor saying, why do we register our genetic review? So
Why did you?
Why did we?
Or why didn't you?
Yeah, so I think it's more,
Yeah.
the expectation is that you do.
Yeah. Yeah, the comment is that, why is it highly recommended? The expectation is that it should be registered. I think it is there as highly recommended because of different review types. Because sometimes you think that you're doing a systematic review and you end up doing something else. And if you're doing something else, that must register kind of falls off. Because for scoping reviews, for systematic literature reviews, that is not a must. And it will be very difficult to find someone who will register your protocol.
But there are places you can.
Yeah, and we will talk about it in the following slides. But I guess that's the logic why highly recommended. For systematic reviews, yes, it's highly recommended to the point that you will have to put all the efforts in to register it. And if it's a proper systematic review, it probably wouldn't be difficult. But it becomes the murkier the review type, the more difficult the process of
And
registering.
have there been comparisons made between what is registered and what is published?
By who?
Just by review, I mean, just like people out there who looked at comparisons between actual protocols and what is published from those protocols.
The question is, have there been comparisons made between what is registered and what is published as a systematic review? I suppose there is. I guess it's a case-by-case basis. It's more in terms of if you have questions about this systematic review, you might go and check what was in the protocol. So it's a system of, it's like an insurance system, you know? So you put all these bits and pieces in place. So whoever has time and desire can go back and track your progress. I remember a couple of years ago reading all about replicability crisis in science, when some keen scientists, especially in disciplines which were not quite scientific in their view, like clinical psychology or something like this, went back and checked data for many research experiments and published and ruined a lot of reputations by doing so because they didn't come up with the same results. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there should be a reason. Why would you want to do that and compare the protocol and the published version? I wouldn't go further speculating what should be the reason, but I'd say yeah.
It's just interesting to see those disparities. It'd be interesting to see if the intent behind registering is being matched by, is it fulfilling its intent?
But I think it's case by case basis. Yes.
It didn't mean, I thought, don't know in my neck, that the number of protocols that have been covered, which haven't led to a publication. Is that what you mean?
The clarification was that the comment was about how many protocols that were published didn't match the published reviews. Again, I can speculate that you probably can write a PhD on this topic. It sounds like a topic for research. I haven't come across any, but again, I'm not pursuing this as a hobby.
They normally explicitly mentioned somewhere in the final version that it wasn't meant this way. However, when we win the data or somewhere, how it was changed. So maybe there is something around flexibility of changing the protocols if if it's my desire for them.
And the comment is that sometimes there is a note in the published review that they've moved away or deviated from the protocol. So apparently there is a process around flexibility around changing protocol. I think there is a process around reporting on changes. Am I correct, Jess? Reporting on changes to protocol, because that's kind of part of bias minimization, right? If you've done something that's different, you need to talk about it. It's transparency that matters. Yeah. Protocols sound so boring that usually stimulate so much discussion. It's amazing. And as I said, your search strategy needs to be included in your protocol. So this is the first and very important part of the process, and it can't be just skipped over. We have these templates here for you to have a look, and also the checklist that can help you with protocol.
What's the update with Prisma? I heard that was updated recently.
Yeah, they've made some changes, but I suggest that you went to the website and have a look at it. I think they itemized the databases instead of all database numbers of results from all databases. It's now itemized. You have to go database by database. That's one comes to mind from last time I saw it.
Julia, just to make a few comments I've seen recently, there's quite a lot of systematic reviews, and in my view, there's quite a lot of systematic reviews that are probably inappropriately, because there's interventions which are complex, and those complex interventions, healthcare interventions, are not stable. So, a systematic review by nature, if it gets into the process, then you want to make meaningful comparisons across them. So it's not for every healthcare intervention unless the intervention is stable. And another thing, and I've been a reviewer for a paper where in the end, with this systematic review process, the question was fine, the process was fine, and then one paper was included in the systematic review, and they intended to meta-analyze, and then you can't meta-analyze that one paper there. So the utility or the value of that is somewhat questionable. And in many senses, the systematic review process is a process designed for internal validity of the actual study, and then the stronger that process, the higher the replicability of the review, and that's kind of good. But increasingly now, there's more reviews of reviews, or reviews of systematic reviews, which is kind of interesting, but it also brings in its own question marks and challenges with respect to the interpretation of that data.
Thank you. We can conclude from all this that yes, this is a very fast-moving and complex field, systematic reviews. To continue with the protocol business, for systematic reviews proper, there are a few platforms that would accept a protocol. As I said, I encourage you to explore these links offline. Well, links offline, but you know what I mean, when slides are, when we are offline. If for some reason you cannot go with, say, Prospero, Cochrane, or John Briggs, there are other options that you can explore, because the very idea, reason why you need to register a protocol is to make it publicly available with a timestamp. So whichever platform allows you to do that, and there are quite a few preprint platforms out there, you can then approach your editor or editor of the journal that you want to publish in and say, yes, it has been published. It has been published here. This is the timestamp. This is the link. This is the DOI if they need the DOI. So if you understand what the principle is about, and it's about having that timestamp and having that access, you can explore other options for registering your protocol. Small break for questions. Yep.
So, probably just. I've seen sometimes, I don't know, for Cochrane ones, they actually they actually publish the whole protocol instead of just registering it on a website. So is there any method of doing that? Is it for the longitudinal, for example, if it's like big studies, like big team, only they have to do it because I can assume, or like, as you mentioned, for small and
The comment is about that sometimes the whole protocols are published instead of just being registered using a sort of concise form. I don't have really an answer for that, why and where the cutting and the line would be. Because there are forms which you can fill in, depending on the platform, I guess. If you go to Prospero, it has a form you fill in, right? But for example, if you are a University of Sydney researcher and you're using Sydney eScholarship repository to register your protocol, you basically just submit a PDF, you know, and it becomes a publication of sorts, because this makes it public, and it means that whoever has the link to this publication can then check, you know, what was there before and what your research has resulted in. So I guess it's just practicability of it, like, and the platform you went with. That and resources that your team has. Visibility.
For a lot of HDRs especially, we'll be looking for
Yeah.
research.
Same thing that we are doing is, I was in the startup, you know, this is something that we're doing, probably, the other reason,
And the comment was that if you have limited resources, you'd go for the open access option, because, you know, you're poor. You still need to do it.
I think the other comment with respect to registering a trial and systematic reviews are very labour intensive and time consuming. And so, you know, research resources are relatively scarce these days. So if someone else is doing it, we don't want to reinvent the wheel if we don't have to reinvent the wheel. On the other hand, if you're doing a systematic review and it's a good systematic review, they're very publishable. So people also want more publications. But we should be mindful of, you know, the limited nature of our research time and the, you know, what gap is going to be filled in the literature by undertaking a systematic review. So there's a trade-off between, you know, just getting a publication of a systematic review, which has already been done before, versus undertaking a systematic review in a, you know, a relatively newer area.
Yeah, there's always a trade-off between what research and reality. What am I saying? Golden standard and reality. That's the topic.
So have
today.
we found it's scoping in?
No, we're going there. I'm just going to ask Basil if there are any questions there.
So far, there aren't any questions from Basel at the moment.
Thank you. So coming back to the review types, just to refresh in your mind that there is a spectrum. And there is no judgment attached to this spectrum. It's not like one is worse and one is better. It is all about the topic that you want to cover and why do you think this review type fits your topic best. And to make this judgment, I'll take you through the review types. So we'll start with, and this is sort of our recreation of the Cochrane funnel. We start with systematic review profile. You can see that we're starting with a focus question and a comprehensive search at the very top, right? And there is a huge number of different types of what should we call it? Results coming through, right? And then you can see that the funnel has a grid. So we'll start sifting these results through our selection criteria. We're applying very specific selection criteria, and you can see that only triangles are going through because our selection criteria was specific study type, because we need evidence, right? And then we go into the full text analysis and data extraction, and we apply our appraisal criteria, whatever they are, and we end up with very neat sort of data analysis at the bottom, because usually for properly conducted and especially clinically orientated systematic review, you can come up with quite neat data analysis and meta-analysis in particular. So that's your classic systematic review. Yes, this is sort of the same Cochrane funnel, just in a different graphic.
Just wondering, why will symbolizing RCT, so why would this be funneled down to the triangles? I was just.
Yeah, because you put the filter, like presumably here you put the filter for study types. So when you created your search strategy at the very top, you put the filter study type RCT, and only RCTs are coming through. It's our sort of simplified way of saying that for a classic systematic review, RCTs are usually the preferred study type that is being, selected. Not in pharmacy, maybe, or not primarily, maybe, but let's set sort of like a golden standard, right?
So that's just like an example of
It is
an
an
inclusion
example.
criteria. So there could be other reasons.
You could have selected cohort study, and those will be just golden ones. So happened to be RCTs. So we probably should have said systematic review filtered by study type here, to clarify. If we're moving towards a scoping review and applying the same funnel metaphor, you can see that it becomes much bigger. And the size here matters because the topics that are suitable for scoping reviews are usually much wider. It is about what has been published on this topic, what exists, and Ilse is nodding because she's doing one. So what exists, what has been done? So it's a much greater number of results to begin with. And from experience, it easily goes into tens of thousands at the beginning, high tens of thousands. So you can see that we again start with all sorts of study types and all sorts of information at the beginning, and then we start filtering. The main difference here is that the selection criteria do exist, the pre-specified selection criteria do exist for scoping reviews, because you do have a topic and you do have, in scope and out of scope information, but that's pretty much it. As you go through title and abstract screening, and then a little bit of thematic analysis on a small patch, on a sample, you then start identifying themes within, well, in this particular case, it's not by theme, it's by, I'm confusing everyone right now. This funnel is identifying different study types. For example, in the scoping review, you set yourself up with a topic and you want to see what's been published in terms of study types. How many RCTs are there? How many observational studies? How many of this? How many of that? And you may come up with a heat map. You know, there's just a little bit of RCTs, a lot of observational studies. There might be reasons for it. There might be not. There might be just that's how historically it happened, and we need to reverse this trend. Or there might be a reason, so in this particular topic, only these studies are possible, and only these studies are done. But without doing this scoping review, you can't really see that. It visualizes the state of play in the research field that you do. But as I said, the selection criteria at the very beginning will be quite limited. They will be very generic and basically just in and out of scope for your topic. And as you go, you can either, as I said, create a map by study type, or you can do a thematic analysis. And that's when it becomes a little bit tricky, because you will be identifying themes as you read through first title and abstract, and then identified full text reviews of studies. So you create your themes as you go, and this is a huge and very profound difference between a systematic review and a scoping review. That selection criteria is not as limiting and as constraining as they are in a systematic review. And scoping reviews, the protocols, yes, we do recommend you have them, but you probably won't be able to register it anywhere because they're just not accepted. And for literature review, systematic literature review, I usually say that you can conduct this kind of review in any discipline. That's, for example, I'm a historian in my former life, so I could have easily done this in history. Formulate a topic, run a big search across multiple databases, collect all these results, and then start sifting through them, applying in scope, out of scope criteria, and coming up with a thematic analysis of results. So it's systematic literature review is not bound by evidence. It's not about identifying evidence in literature. It's basically about anything in literature, any kind of literature. Yes?
When you mentioned extracting a theme, and you just allow the evidence to sort of take you along that journey, you just triggered another type of systematic search called integrative review.
The question is thematic analysis the same as integrative review?
Well, you can basically accept any type of study type, and you also draw themes, because I know the nursing field are really big on that.
Yeah, I think from memory, integrative reviews are reviews of mixed method type, when you sort of having qualitative and quantitative in sort of same basket, and then you sort of integrate. When I'm talking scoping review, thematic analysis, it is a thematic analysis of literature. It's before analysis of evidence. You know, so what themes, like for example, you want to know what kind of literature exists. Oh gosh, what's the topic? I don't know, home births. Right? What's published in Australia about home births, right? And you've created this search strategy and you pulled this enormous amount of literature together. And then you will be looking at, okay, there's legislation around home birth. There's guidance and practice guidelines around home birth. There is international experience around home birth. So you see, it's not about the method of analysis. It's about the topic within the topic. So that's what I mean by theme. Integrative without going into any further detail where I'm going to be a complete fool because this is not my topic. But this is, I think, kicks in at the level of analysis of evidence rather than topic within the topic. Hope it makes sense. We put together a table of additional resources for you to have a look at. You can see that there is a systematic review and systematic scoping review theoretical literature there. A couple of articles that might help you understand better on the methodology level what the differences are. There's also rapid reviews there because they are gaining momentum at the moment, especially in the area of government and policy work. And there are some examples from pharmacy area below the line there. So I'll encourage you to have a look. Let me check how I'm doing this time. We break at 5:20, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so I have 15 minutes. Any questions?
Can I just ask you about a rapid review? Is that just a very quick review, but does it follow similar methods or how does it differ?
Jess? Can you give the yeah. Sorry, putting you on the spot like that. You've done one.
I have a question about rapid reviews and what the deal is. I have talked a team to do one, and I guess what I would say is the two breeds that we've got there have been good by people who are West Cochrane. So the rapid reviews is definitely an emerging field. But what Cochrane is particularly interested in is sort of understanding, what I guess limitations could be introduced to the method if you start taking shortcuts. So if you are interested in rapid reviews, I would encourage you to take a look at those resources because they are authored by people who sort of do have that affiliation with the Cochrane group and who are trying to provide some clarity and I guess show the implications of what taking a few sort of shortcuts will do. But yes, it is more common to see it in policy areas especially. But yeah, it's got more to play out for sure.
Do you know what the shortcuts are? Like, what do they do, for example, to?
Okay, I'll preface this by saying I'm not an expert. But I think one of the things that I've seen is the extent of comprehensive searching. So there'll be probably fewer databases, electronic databases that will be searched in rapid review. And there may also be limitations around grey literature searching, for example, and possibly the use of mechanisms in searching. So yeah, when I'm speaking about it, I can probably talk a little bit more to the searching side of things. I'm less able to talk to what rapid methods might be taken with analysis, but certainly from the searching side of things, it's just a bit more of a contraction on how comprehensive their searching that literature.
Okay.
If you remember the Cochrane definition, it's identifying all available evidence, published and unpublished. You can imagine that contraction can be quite significant. When you're saying, I probably won't be able to find all of them. So yeah, it's there, like they're coming from a very high ground. And okay, not all.
Part of the issue may be for a Cochrane review, that could take a number of years to the final product, but with a rapid review, it's not going to be years, that is multiple, it's going to be within a year, within 6 months, or something like that. And I guess the, like the conceptual trade-off is the false negatives, like what's been left out of the review by having potentially more strict or more black and white inclusion criteria, perhaps.
Something to look out for. Are there any questions there in Basel at this point?
You've got something in the chat,
Or something in the chat? They're on chat, yeah. It's all good?
Yeah.
Oh, chat is sorted, okay. If there are no questions in person,
No, there are no questions from Basel.
so we've got 10 minutes before the break. So I think I'll start, this is the first question. So I'll start on replicability. So we covered the 2 minutes? Yes, so 10 minutes, yeah. We covered the, what was the word? Started with M. I forgot what the word was. Minimizing bias, yes. Sorry, look, it's 5:10 PM here in Sydney. No, I'm forgetting words. I do apologize. I do remember how they started with them. So yeah, minimizing bias and now replicability. So on our part, and where the library makes the most impact on systematic reviews, replicability basically takes form of documented and comprehensive search. That's what we're talking about. To understand what we're talking about when we're talking about comprehensive search, it's useful to have a look at these two pictures. When we're usually searching in normal life, for example, if I want to know which restaurant to go to tonight or which takeaway to take out for the family, I want this one answer delivered to me quickly and precisely, right? I'm typing something into Google, the best Thai restaurant in Hornsby, Sydney, and that's what I want to know. Just what is that best restaurant?
Newton.
Thank you. Google answered. Comprehensive search works very differently. So it's not fishing for that one big fat fish. It is throwing the net out, and by the net, I mean you're weaving that net by constructing a comprehensive search first. You're making that net to your specifications. And then you're throwing it in, and you're hauling this fish and rubbish and boots and starfish and God knows what else on the back of the trawler. And then you start sifting through that, throwing out fish, no fish, fish, no fish, fish, no fish. That's your first screening, off topic, on topic. Then you're left with just fish. That fish can be this big, this small, that shape, this shape. You have a measuring form, right? You have a standard. You start putting your fish into that standard. Fits, doesn't fit, fits, doesn't fit, fits. That's your second appraisal. So it's almost like a factory process of processing fish on the trawler rather than stream and pole fishing for that big tuna. So that is the difference. And when you think about comprehensive search that way, your search results become the first part of your data collection. It's not searching per se, it's data collection. So if you're not documenting your search, and if you're not presenting a search strategy in a replicable way, so someone can take it and do the same, and after that you're creating a beautiful meta-analysis, it almost doesn't matter. Because the first part is not satisfied, we can't replicate how you got there. So it's very important, that's what I'm trying to say. So the steps of a comprehensive search include a lot of steps, and we're not teaching you how to do it. It's a whole different lot of fish. So you identify major concepts, you turn them into searchable concepts, you eliminate redundant concepts, you do a scoping search to identify synonyms. It's a huge, iterative, complex process, and you would need a help of a specialist, of information specialist to go through it. Running it in multiple databases is a must. You check results, you adjust, you're weaving that net. You're weaving it. You don't just do it once. You're throwing it in, you're checking it, still has holes. You meant holes, you're throwing it in again, checking. And once you're satisfied with your net, you can actually throw it in one final time in multiple databases, pull it all up and start screening. So many times researchers come to us with one search, done once, in one database, started screening. Spend 3 days. That's wasted, that's time wasted, because you can't do that, you just cannot. Until you refined it to the point that it is working and doing what you want. And then you do it in 1 day in multiple databases, and then you can work with a whole lot. I wanted to show you how it looks like. So this is taken from, yes, you can see Ilse's and Edwin's review. And this is a search, this is the Medline search strategy, right? Search string. This is not how it would look in Medline, but that's aside. What we need to understand looking at this search strategy, what elements it contains. And you can see that it clearly defined into 4 distinct concepts. See, we have hospitalization, older people, medication-related event, and psychotropic. Clear, focused, self-contained concepts. And visually, we can see the search strings aligned with each concept. You can clearly see that librarian working as well. And then that's the first bit, how clear and readable it is. The second bit, we start looking for things like subject headings, because when you're searching Medline, Embase, see now, subject headings will be there, available for you. Not explaining what it is now, just saying, should be there. And keywords. And search syntax. So elements that contribute to the comprehensiveness of your search. And you can see here, to bring it all together, identify clear and distinct concepts. That's where a lot of researchers trip up. And we see what we in libraries say now, concept drift. Concept drift. It's a very common thing, and it's very dangerous, because if you combine concepts in the wrong way, you're going to get wrong results. Searching in multiple databases, unless you're doing a rapid review, can get away with one. Includes both keywords and subject headings, include multiple synonyms for concepts, and includes advanced search syntax. And now I think I'll break here, because we do have this activity to go through, but we can do it after the break. I'm very impressed with myself. Not in terms of time.
So,
Basil, we're going for 10-minute break. Zoom, we're going for 10 minutes as well. Coming back at 5:30.
yeah.
I'm not known for perfect timing.
Nicely done.
Given how it's been.
And how, yeah, and how.
Yeah, I do. It's on,
I remember when you first looked at that
uh,
strategy. I remember when you first looked at the search strategy.
Did you?
Yeah.
I don't.
I do, because it's my first one.
yeah.
Not sure what I was doing. Yeah. Very.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
It actually breaks it down.
Yeah.
Like everyone should.
Everyone should hear people, all the early career reflections, I feel like we should all watch the recording of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very educated.
Oh, yeah.
But it's be good to be this conversational examples, and I think often like even I don't know for next year, well, you don't look after it, you've got roads, like maybe on ends. You know, they yeah, but like.
It all started in farming.
Yeah.
All those examples, they're all coming from farming. Because I was holding the flag and these. I would find them. It's actually rather difficult for us to move to other areas because.
Yeah.
So it's good to come out on.
Where did you base it on? In science, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that?
Well, I'm not a library manager, so.
Oh. Different role. Yeah.
No, like I don't really say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not- that's why I was worried because I haven't done this work. But I haven't. But it comes back.
Yeah.
It comes back. Except for the part of the big ones. What? Do you want to go?
Yeah, I do.
Because I'm not.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we feel like finish here.
Just you can buy, like you want to be.
It's a hard.
So you're coming back to 5:30, I have no idea what's going on in this. Look, it always amazing, like, for me, it's such a boring, I just watch just. Oh, it's probably.
In the same stage as that, yeah.
Yeah, we get. Oh, that's cool. Well, what should you? I remember. I just. Yeah, I don't think it's a viable proposition to do it at once. I think it's case by case. If you have some worries or suspicions or whatever reason, you just do that. My chief offered me Mandarin, I was just I have.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Before because we have opposite on campus security. And there's a bit of fun. What time is that? Class on, one out. Yeah, I got a wall and saw it. With the walk of event, but the formal walk of the. But with my life. Well, and the dress and saw about 6 minutes. So people were just coming in from the oil spot. Is that how to actually. Could be having to. I can't really much. I was like, like going back for. Well, there this morning we had a workshop with Chicago participation. I like the lots of people were there, like everyone. In the field, I think there's some.
Oh, there's some this stuff.
Better than not, I'm like. But this time I still in Chicago and it's really good. You say.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna get started. Flooding one.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The morning was yet like, I told my husband's on it, watching out. Yeah. Early time, it's like 4, 3 months, when you find it.
Yeah.
But how you work on it is my state, which is have the like, I never mistake.
What's happening now?
What do you guys do in the next part of the session?
We'll do activity, well, it's a. The garden, which is based in.
I don't have any great capacity for dealing with the grant, the American PCR grant application. Just rushing today, so I think I'll just reach capacity, but then extended the deadline.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll just get most of it.
Alright.
You've got your questions, hopefully answered.
Yeah, if it's clear, and I'll check out the references. And yeah, it's an interesting science, like just doing systematic reviews and then scoping. It's just a science thing, so you really need to do it well.
I think that's a very, fair summary.
Yeah.
Like someone, I think it was an A-math student who basically said, to us once that before coming to this session, I didn't realize that it's the same, like before they take it to the lab, they tell you what to do in a lab, you know, like what the equipment is, how to do it, how to work with it, what to wear, what to do. Same here, like you have to learn. You have to learn what to do, how to do, you need to go through applications, librarians, all that. It is, and it's a field of knowledge. Absolutely. So I did go in side by side with what we learned. Like we can't just stumble into it and just it doesn't work. We can't stumble in the lab and just know how to
Yeah.
mix.
Yeah. Yeah.
You expert. That's what we have really on. Well, we can.
Yeah.
Are you finding too? Really? I didn't know that. Did you go through that?
It's recent, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like FMH. Okay.
Then I go and then.
Is there anyone else? Is it just you or is there other one? I don't think so.
I think it's 7 people, 6 of them.
Are you still training pharmacy students on this, like you used to?
Whoever from FMH.
Yeah. It's changed.
But yeah. Where was the one?
Okay, you leave one here.
Yeah, yeah, we come back and it's a different world.
Something's
Very good. Okay, yeah.
Why not? All right, stay fun and see you tomorrow. All right, take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
What's the actual time where? Oh, but we started it. I did that break.
I've said really fast.
Yeah, but there's a 5:30.
Oh, shit.
Oh, no, it's fine.
But I just want to go.
That's what I mean. We did say 5:30.
Yeah.
So let's get there. That's okay, because there's no point, we might as well finish early.
Do you, Jess, you should be the one?
Oh, did you want some fruit? Did you? Oh, yeah. Fair enough. It's a very long day.
11 p.m. last night. She's like, I'm going soon.
I'm going to.
Yeah, but I actually was like in bed. I woke up, I think, at 11 o'clock here, just to leave them room. But I think there were a few people that
Yeah.
the presentation was obviously over, but I would feel.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I'm one of those students.
one of the students.
They should just close leave it like one of the meeting for everyone. But I think, yeah, Tim and obviously some people say so.
What if like? Yeah. So, what's on tomorrow? Is there more workshops?
So, yeah, so we start at 7 again.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
More.
I helped to finish with,
Oh, 6 or 7.
yeah. Did you like me? First.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, sorry. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And maybe like now. And then we've got our rules.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to be.
Yeah. But it's on behalf of like, I'm not leading the projects, but I'm like.
Yeah, I think it's full of orals, holiday. There is somewhere.
And you're all good in here?
Yeah.
You know, you've got to use a different Zoom link this time.
Once we have these.
Yeah, because otherwise I end up with a 3-hour recording. Yeah. One computer crashes. Process
Okay.
and upload it. So I need to stop this one.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
this type.
Yeah.
And I'll make an announcement.
but there should be in the schedule, there's a separate Zoom link for part 2.
Yeah,
So all I have to do is click on it like you did for this one.
Okay.
It's 2 bigger
Yeah.
files, 3-hour file,
Okay.
and it has a
Yeah.
It's not fun to work with.
Yeah, no, I bet. All right, I'll let them. Hi Basil. Just letting you know that for the next section, we're going to be using the second Zoom link. So can you please re-log in?
Yeah, I will reconnect. See you.
Great, thanks so much, Julia. All right, I'll stop this session now.
All right, so your Basil's smart.